I do think that there's this palliative care is having a moment where it's proven to be essential, where it's not just a nicety on the side, where people get viscerally the power of actually bearing witness and not judging and tending to someone's suffering because they're a fellow human being, et cetera, et cetera. That is true in the narrow sense that I do believe its purchase within healthcare is rising. And that's nothing but wonderful is whatever gets us there. In palliative care, we're very used to this idea that tragedies and triumphs come together. You don't have one world for the hard stuff and another world they're all in this mix, and you play them off each other, you work with them. And so that's very instructive for us within a healthcare setting, within the context of illness. But I think you're also pointed to something really key, which is palliative care is also, it's almost a philosophy, it's not just a healthcare discipline. It's an approach to life. And that approach to life holds that suffering is part of the deal, is not anomalous. And that compassion, that suffering is something that binds us. It's something that we all have in common. And it's where we can get to know each other. So yes, on all fronts, I'm almost excited for the field in this way, and it really needs to show up right now in a certain way, and I believe it is. So that's really good. But I think also, I'm just going to circle back to the macro. I think another thing that palliative care does well is it holds a bigger idea of reality. And what I said earlier about we're coming to terms with nature. Another way of saying that is we're being called to imagine a bigger reality than the narrow one we've been focusing on. And I'm very often reminded how myself and we human beings will feel some conflict in life, and to manage that, we narrow our field of view to simplify things and make them more knowable and to make it easier to navigate. And that's a convention, and it's a borrowed time. You can't hold these narrow views of reality for very long and stay awake. And so what's happening right now is our ideas of reality are being shattered, and it turns out it's much larger. There are many more things going on, et cetera. So we're being asked to expand our capacity to deal with a reality that is much bigger, much more complicated, and has much less opportunity for control. Okay, we can't stop at that lesson because there still are things that we can control. We still do have some agency, and now more than ever, those moments of agency are really, really critical. So this is two-step of acknowledging all that we can't control and coming to terms with that, while finding where we can exercise ourselves towards a intended future. And we need more than ever to acknowledge what we can actually do. It's not simply letting go. Letting go is half of it. Hanging on is also very important in some real ways. So it's complicated, but there is a technology around that, a spiritual traditions for doing that, this medical tradition of palliative care for doing that. So this is just going to be tricky, and it's going to really force us to we can't fall down on pat responses. We can't sort of fashion a world we don't look at the bad stuff and only hold to the good stuff. That's just not going to work right now, if it ever did.